Hey everybody, and welcome back to Video Game So today I got a fun and exciting episode for you guys this evening because I thought it was funny. I talked about new decompilation and recompilation projects over the weekend that were coming soon, and I mentioned Majora's Mask as a decomp and a recomp that absolutely was outstanding. And then literally about 24 hours later, the Zelda 64 recompilation project for Majora's Mask updated a 1.2 status, bringing in max support, full modding abilities, retexturing, and a ton of other improvements in quality of life features. And it's kind of like I willed it into existence even if I had nothing to do with it whatsoever. And just so you know, there are two different projects out there right now. There's two shipped to Harkinian, which is a decompilation, and there is Zelda 64 Recompiled, which we're playing today. They are two different ways to skin that same Zelda-shaped cat, and both of them are absolutely outstanding and have pluses and minuses both in their own right. So I'm not here to say which one is better, I'm just here to deliver the news about how good these actually are. Before I get too far involved though, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Definitely helps us out. If you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, I got a Patreon link down below as well. But right off the top, there's two massive features in this new version 1.2. First, if you're a Macintosh user, you're now going to be able to download this as a build and start playing it. Because of the patch notes, it says that metal rendering has now been included and Macintosh should be working perfectly fine. But secondarily, the entire modification engine being built into this recomp is going to be great. If you take a look at the left hand side of the screen here, you're going to see the D-pad, and you have the ocarina on the bottom as well as three different masks that you can set. This is going to give you the quick swap ability to be able to move between masks without having to dive into the menu all the time. And this is just one of probably hundreds of modifications and patches that are going to come to something like this, because as soon as fans start modding this game in the new recompiled version of it, there's just going to be a ton of stuff, and I bet soon, and I hope that there will be a randomizer enabled in the recompiled version, because I would love to see that. If you never played one before, a randomizer basically just mixes up the entire game, putting all of those different items you need to progress the story in different locations and giving you hints. So while each randomizer seed is completable, you have no idea where anything is, and it basically makes the game feel about as new and fresh as it possibly could. I want to abuse a save state here just basically to fly around and show you different areas in the game to show just how incredible this looks. 16:9 Majora's Mask with graphical enhancements in a modern environment with modifications and different hacks that you can apply to the game, including that D-pad quick mask switch, just makes this the de facto best version of the game to play in my opinion. And I love that it wasn't just a situation where they got the recompiled version running on PC, gave you some quality of life improvements, and said we're done, we're going to move on to the next project. The fact that developers are going back in and making this even better, it's just outstanding. And again, I've been talking a lot about decomps and recomps on the channel recently, because suddenly in the last maybe like 12 months or so, they're just absolutely blowing up. And when we talk about stuff like the upcoming Golden Eye decompilation project, getting modification and improvements into that's the same thing you're going to see. And I just appreciate that people love these games so much. They don't just want to get them running on modern systems with quality of life improvements and graphical improvements. They want to also get those mods in, and they want to keep supporting it. Leave me a comment down below. What's one mod for Majora's Mask you'd love to see incorporated into the recompiled version of the game? For me, definitely the randomizer would be my top choice, but I'm sure you're going to have a lot of different guesses out there, and I'm sure a lot of them are going to be way more creative than mine. Think about stuff like Donkey Kong 64, where they have the swap anywhere mod, where as opposed to having to go swap to different Kongs in a specific location, you can do it anywhere in the game. That makes a very tedious collectathon that was fun when you were kids, but maybe a little bit annoying as adults, into something that you can just absolutely breeze through and enjoy the game without the game's design fighting you. Think about the water temple in Ocarina of Time, modifying that to make it easier just makes it a quality of life improvement that you're going to love. So I'm sure there's a lot to be done with Majora's Mask, but as far as the audio quality in the recompiled version of the game, it's every bit as good as you would hear on Nintendo 64, and in my opinion even better. So go ahead and listen, and I'll be right back to show you a lot more of the changes. I mean, the audio quality is exactly what you would want it to be. It's got some of the most iconic tracks in the Legend of Zelda history and just sounds incredible coming out of the recompiled version of the game. But I think another one of my favorite things is just the widescreen support, and you can really just dial this thing up to basically whatever resolution and aspect ratio you need. And the fact that all of the heads-up display and UI elements do adhere to that 16:9 aspect ratio, or in this instance about 16:8 as I'm capturing it, works perfectly. You don't have to worry about the UI actually obscuring anything. Now if we go into the settings menu, some have been added, but I'll go over these again if you've never checked it out. I would definitely say the number one thing I love so much is having dual analog control, but you have rumble strength ability to change the rumble in your controller. You can do gyroscopic aiming. You can rebind the controller however you want. So if there's a specific configuration you want versus what the game will automatically pick depending on what controller you plug in, you'll have that option. And you'll see here, as far as the frame rate is concerned, you can match it to your display. You can have the original frame rate. You can dial in a manual frame rate. You have anti-aliasing as well. But honestly, it's this mods window right here that has come along for the ride that is amazing. You'll see here built-in mod for Majora's Mask that maps the transformation mask and Ocarina of Time to the D-pad. That just keeps you from having to go into the menu all the time. Being able to quick switch is just such an increase in your time saving, because honestly, one of the most annoying parts about Majora's Mask or the 3D Zelda games back in the day was just how much stuff you had to do in the menu. It would take you out of the gameplay experience and basically make you just pause and kind of navigate around. Here it is done at the press of a button, and that is absolutely just going to keep you in the game's vibe, not having to worry about navigating menus, but just playing and having fun. So I think that is a very intelligent mod as far as the recomp is concerned. But just think of all the other things you could have. And I said again, you do have gyro aiming as well, so I did use the analog stick to knock Tingle down here, but if you had gyro in your controller, you could have gone ahead and just moved it around, and you can change the sensitivity as well with all of your arrows. Kind of feels a little bit like playing something like Breath of the Wild on the Switch, except you're playing Majora's Mask on your PC in a recomp version. And again, I just can't stress enough how gorgeous this game looks. Now don't get me wrong, I grew up with the Nintendo 64 and I love Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask on that system, but I was talking in the comments a few days ago about the concept of air quotes preservation. Preservation isn't just making sure that games run via software emulation or FPGA cores so that you don't need to use original hardware, at least in my opinion. If I was to show any of my nephews Ocarina of Time or Majora's Mask and I let them play it on a Nintendo 64, they would walk away because it would be old looking and it would be slow. But all of them have played Breath of the Wild and the sequel. Now if I showed them something like the recomp of Majora's Mask, it looks modern, it looks stylized, you can use an Xbox controller, they will then sit down and play the game and have fun because you've removed the barrier of it feeling like an old game. That is as much preservation as anything else. Speaking of preservation, one more soundtrack sample. That's a bad segue, but it's coming up, and I'll be right back with more. I mean, if there's one thing Nintendo developers loved, it was a crying baby, whether it's Majora's Mask or whether it's something like Yoshi's Island. And moving over to a capture that Andy D sent as he was checking the game out last night as well, you can see he went full 16:9 here. For some reason, mine was at 16:8, but I had some issues capturing with OBS. It just did not want to focus on the window whatsoever, so I had to capture my entire monitor and then scale it to fit and resolve, which every once in a while drives me nuts, but that has nothing to do with the recomp, everything to do with the fact that OBS just didn't feel like playing nice with me yesterday, and it does that sometimes. But honestly, this new version of Majora's Mask Recomp just adds so much. It's stable, it looks absolutely gorgeous, the controls are outstanding with the ability to configure them however you want, and then again, Mac support coming in as well as an entire mod engine and improvements to the graphics and spots. It just has absolutely everything you want out of a project like this, and that's why on the channel I've been hyping the ever-loving hell out of decomps and recomps recently, because it really does feel like getting the game for the first time again. again. This feels like a new release that you just happen to remember playing on the Nintendo 64 decades ago. And again, I just think this is going to go a long way for keeping these games in the public consciousness, because trust me, we're not getting any younger, and the generation before us may never actually play Majora's Mask if it looks like a blurry 4x3 Nintendo 64 game. I love that look. It is a vibe. I grew up with it, but if you didn't grow up with that graphical styling, imagine trying to play a Nintendo 64 game today for the first time. You'd probably think it was too slow, you'd probably think the controls are a little bit too annoying, and you might just basically play it for 20 minutes and say it's not a good game, which wouldn't be true. We know this is one of the best Nintendo games ever made, so recomps and decomps are just keeping the dream alive for future generations, even if you do have to listen to one more crying Nintendo baby. But leave me a comment down below and tell me, I like to ask this every video, if you could snap your fingers and get one decomp and recomp just to instantaneously appear, what would it be for you? For me, I'm always going to say Bomberman Hero. Link to this is below, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.